So last Monday I did a video on Resident Evil 1 talking about the best moments, the most memorable moments of that game. And I figured, you know what, let's turn this into a mini series and continue this on. Every single Monday I'm going to post a video talking about the best moments of a different Resident Evil title. And today's title is Resident Evil 2 and its remake. And I'm gonna be honest, this is probably gonna be the hardest one to do because I feel like Resident Evil 2 has some of the best, most memorable moments of the entire series. I tried my best and I narrowed it down to just 10, and honestly I don't know if everybody's gonna agree with my list here, but I am going to do my best to make you guys all happy with this list. These are the most memorable moments for me personally when it comes to Resident Evil 2. So my name is Ruben with Nerdspace Games, and here are the top 10 most memorable moments of Resident Evil 2. Let's get it.
Jesus, stay back!
Number 10, enter Mr. X Resident Evil Remake. So honestly, of course, both versions of Mr. X are really iconic and really interesting, especially since Mr. X's entrance in the original Resident Evil 2 game is probably the one that catches you more off guard, because in the original game, he only pops up in Scenario B. So why did I decide to put the version from Resident Evil 2 Remake instead of the version from Resident Evil 2 the original game on this list specifically? Well, because in the remake version, I feel like his entrance is a little bit more iconic and memorable in my opinion, and that's just for me personally. So both versions of Mr. X involve him pretty much being dropped into the RPD station. What makes the remake version a little bit more interesting is that when you first encounter Mr. X, he literally moves the chopper out of his way. He picks up a fucking chopper and moves it out of his way to get to you. And as soon as he does that, you get this terrifying but also extremely exciting music playing that just like gets your blood rushing.
Jesus, stay back!
So in my opinion, that whole moment right there is a little bit more iconic. Yes, Mr. X falls through the roof in the original game, but just seeing him pop up by moving a chopper out of his fucking way, to me, is a little bit more memorable and iconic, but that's just me. Number 9, the zombie hallway, Resident Evil 2, the original. So technically there are a couple different zombie hallways I could be talking about. I mean, there are the 2 different hallways with a fuse box that I think are extremely memorable, but there is one zombie hallway that I feel like stands up and above the rest of the zombie hallways, and that is the one when you are walking through a hallway and all of a sudden fucking zombie arms pop out of the wall and try to grab you, and if you don't wiggle out, you immediately get instant killed. The reason why I decided to include this small portion of the game on this list specifically goes back to the fact that I feel like this is one of the scariest jump scares in the entire series, and for that reason it just didn't feel right not to include it on this list. Maybe I'm crazy because I know there are a lot more memorable moments in the game, but for some reason this one sticks out to me so much. So let me know in the comments, do you think something like this deserves to be on the list over some other things that you're going to see that I decided not to include on this list? Let me know in the comments and let me know what you think.
Fire! Fire! You son of a...
Number 8, Birkin vs. Alpha Team, both Resident Evil 2 and its remake. So throughout the game, Birkin has so many different transformations, and honestly, every single one of them are truly iconic. Hell, I was going to include one of those transformations on this list, but then I'm like, I can't pick a single transformation. Maybe the dog version from the original Resident Evil 2, but I couldn't find myself to actually pick one singular moment. But I know for a fact that I had to include Birkin on this list somehow. and I decided to go with his attack against Alpha Team. Now, there are two different versions of this. You could either focus on the original games version, or you can focus on the remakes, and both of them are really unique and tell an interesting story that are truly iconic. So let's focus on the original version first. In the original version, we see Birkin actually getting shot down and appearing to be dead to Alpha Team. Once Alpha Team leaves, he actually takes a G-Virus and affects himself, and then he becomes something much more powerful, something menacing. He hunts down the entire Alpha Team with the exception of one member, as you guys all know, Hunk, the Grim Reaper himself, and he kills almost every single member of the team. What's really iconic about the originals version, in my opinion, is that it's all done in one scene, and honestly, it's truly terrifying because you see each member of Umbrella's forces being hunted out one by one until the very last one, you see him like panicking as he runs out of bullets, and he is truly terrifying as Birkin gets closer and closer, and then all we see before he finishes him off is Birkin's eye, and then that is it. That is the last time we see the rest of those troops except for Hunk in the forced survivor mode. And I personally like that version better. Now in the remake, we also see Birkin taking out the entire Alpha Team with the exception of Hunk as well, except for it's done a little bit differently. Most of it is actually done in some found footage from the troops' eyes themselves, so you actually get to see from their perspective, which is really cool. But in my opinion, just doing it all in one clip all together and seeing Birkin one by one hunt each of these soldiers down, yeah, I think I like the original better. But let me know, which version of Alpha Team being taken down by Birkin is better in your own opinion? Do you like the originals version or do you like the remakes version? I'd love to know your opinions in the comments below, guys. Number 7, Zombie Marvin from Resident Evil 2, the original game. So this is another memorable moment, but I actually feel like it's one of the saddest moments in the game. Not the saddest, but one of the saddest moments in the game. However, I feel like the original, in my opinion, is a little bit more iconic for one reason specifically that I'll get to in just a moment. But basically, Marvin is probably one of the most underrated characters of this game. He doesn't get as much attention as a lot of the other characters from this game, specifically because, well, he dies. Spoiler. But Marvin is truly a heroic character that does what he can to help Claire and Leon both escape from the RPD station and get away from this nightmare. But what really makes the original game stand out as a more iconic and memorable moment goes to the fact that you actually get to watch Marvin's downfall. Because in both the original and the remake, Marvin was actually bit by a zombie, and he is slowly changing into a zombie. However, in the remake, when you actually come back to Marvin, he's already changed. He's already a zombie, and there's no cutscene or anything. You just see him already as a zombie, and it's not as memorable in my opinion. However, in the original game, whenever you first approach Marvin, before he officially changes completely, you actually see the stage of him going from human to zombie right before your very eyes. It's actually really interesting. And I wish the remake did that. I wish maybe we came back, Marvin wasn't breathing, and we felt sad, and we just looked at the body and looked away, and all of a sudden he opens his eyes and he changes. I think that would have been much more iconic for the remake if they did that. Because I truly believe that the more memorable moment from Marvin comes down to the fact that he actually changes before our eyes in the original Scenario A mode of Resident Evil 2, the original game. Let me know, which version do you think is more memorable in your opinion? Number 6, the giant alligator, Resident Evil 2, the original game. And maybe this is nostalgia, but once again, I have to say the alligator in the original game versus the alligator in the remake was just a little bit more iconic and memorable. So why do I feel like this? Well, in the remake, the giant alligator is kind of turned into a quick time dodge mini game sort of, whereas in the original game, the giant alligator actually had a whole boss fight that you actually encounter, and yeah, it could probably be done within like 3 to 5 seconds, but at least it was an actual boss fight versus just dodging its attacks.
Forget it.
Shut up, I've got you.
It's not worth it.
Don't do this.
Take care of yourself, Leon.
No!
Number 5, Ada's death in both the original and the remake of Resident Evil 2. Earlier I said Marvin was probably one of the saddest deaths of Resident Evil 2, but there was one death, quote unquote, that was a little bit more sadder, and that is Ada's death. Sure, we all know that she didn't die in Resident Evil 2. As a matter of fact, in scenario B, you will actually see that she definitely didn't die. However, we are led to believe in the moment of her actually dying that she did die. And honestly, it was truly sad. Despite Ada completely screwing us over and betraying us, she was extremely likable as a character, and yeah, none of us wanted to see her go. But what truly tugged at our heart, whether you look at the remakes version or the original version, despite being betrayed by Ada, was so tragically sad and desperately was trying to save her when he couldn't. He just knew he couldn't, and he was trying his best to save her, and he failed to do so. And it truly hit Leon hard. It definitely had a huge impact on Leon as a character.
Wait! Don't shoot!
Get down! We can't stay out here. Head to the police station. It'll be a lot safer.
Number 4, the intro to Resident Evil 2 and the original, both versions. So I did include both versions because I feel like both of them are truly iconic and memorable for their own reasons. Specifically, I think the original is a little cheesier, but something about it just has a little bit more heart, and I absolutely love. Whereas the remake is a little bit more realistic and gory and definitely sets the tone for the rest of the game. I feel like both moments are truly memorable. In the originals version, the one I feel like is just a little bit more memorable in my own opinion, deals with Claire coming up to a diner, walking around a diner, and as she exits, she finds Leon and says the famous line,
Wait! Don't shoot!
Get down!
As they are leaving though, we see that a truck driver has got bit by a zombie and is now slowly changing into a zombie. And basically after Leon and Claire crash nearby, a semi-truck driver that is now fully zombie is on his way to crash right into them and splits them up with an extreme huge explosion. The remake is fairly similar to this, it's not too much different, but both of these moments really set the tone for what to expect in Resident Evil 2, and I feel like it's a truly memorable moment that, whether it be the original or the remake, we all remember exactly how the story starts in Resident Evil 2.
Freeze! Who are you? What are you doing here? Hold your fire! I'm a human!
Number 3, Kendo. Both versions of Resident Evil 2, the original and the remake. Alright, so Kendo is probably one of the most underrated characters of Resident Evil 2. We all love him, whether he be the cheesy gun shop owner in the original game or he's the more relatable character in the remake. Both versions of Kendo is truly iconic, and we only get one scene with him in both versions. In the original, in my opinion, I still remember the lines exactly as he says them before he is eventually attacked by zombies breaking into his gun shop. Specifically, his dialogue with Claire.
Ooh, sorry about that, babe.
But just that moment whenever all the zombies break through and attack Kendo, yeah, it's hard to forget that exact moment. It is one of the most memorable moments, in my opinion. And then you have to make the decision if you want to go back in and get another gun, or if you think you should just say hell with it. No, it's not worth it. Too many zombies to deal with. I'm gonna get the hell out of here. It's a truly iconic moment. But what the remake does really well, and the reason why I included both on this list, is that the remake actually makes Kendo a likable and relatable character, because they actually give him a daughter in this scene, and she has officially started to change into a zombie, and Kendo knows what's going to happen. And he has to be responsible for putting her down as well as taking his own life. And that moment, that moment in the remake when we learned that he took out his own daughter and himself, yeah, it's hard. It's heartbreaking, guys. So regardless of what version of Kendo you like the best, or which one is more memorable to you, I think both versions deserve a spot on this list, whether it be the cheesy dialogue that Kendo delivers to Claire or Leon in the original game, or the tragic backstory that they give Kendo in the remake. Both versions are truly iconic and memorable. Number 2, RPD's main hall, Resident Evil 2, the original game. Do you remember when you first walked through the double doors of the RPD station in the original game? I remember it perfectly. I can still replay that scene over and over and over in my head because I've seen that scene in my mind so many times. It's one of the most iconic scenes. You walk through those double doors expecting to be at a police station where you might have some safety. Somebody's gonna be waiting for you. You're gonna have some people to help you get through everything, and as soon as you walk in, it's just completely empty. It's deserted, and all you get is this gorgeous look of the RPD station with probably one of the most iconic soundtracks playing in the background. That scene, despite it only being like a few seconds, that scene forever will be sketched in my mind. And obviously it's just the original, because the remake is good, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the remake. But when you have that first entrance in the remake, you don't get that nostalgia feel that you get with the original game. Something about that original scene when you first walk in through those double doors really hit home. It really hits hard whenever you first walk through those double doors. And I feel like the remake didn't really do a good job at capturing that feeling that the original game did when you first walk into the RPD station. But number 1, the liquor scene, Resident Evil 2, the original. So I really went back and forth between number 2 and number 1 because I really like both of these scenes, and I truly think that both of them are extremely memorable when it comes to Resident Evil 2, the original game. However, that first liquor scene is perfection. It truly is, and it's one of the scariest moments of the game, despite it not being a typical jump scare. This is like atmospheric horror. This is a lead up of psychological horror because it kind of sets the tone before you have to fight this creature. So it starts off with you walking into a room, and then you're heading towards this door, and all of a sudden you see some pinkish little creature run across the window really quick. And you know that isn't a good sign at all. You're a little nervous. So you walk through the door and you continue down the hallway, and then you see something else that's scary. Blood dripping, and all you hear is the sound of the blood just constantly hitting the floor. And you get closer and closer to that puddle of blood, and then all of a sudden a cutscene plays. And this is where it truly gets you, because you have this terrifying scene of a licker walking across the ceiling, licking its lips, making the most gruesome sound effects, and all of a sudden, just like that, the cutscene immediately ends and the licker drops on the ground, ready to attack you. That scene to me is the most memorable scene of Resident Evil 2. It's hard to find a scene that tops that one in my opinion. But that does it for this episode of Nerd Space Games. Guys, hit up the comments. You gotta let me know what is the most memorable moment for you in Resident Evil 2. It can be in the original game or the remake. I gotta know. I wanna know your opinions. Come on, hit up those comments. I know mine might be a little bit controversial. There are a lot of big moments that I missed for this list. Brad being a zombie, some of the transformations with Birkin, maybe Birkin dog, the ending sequence. There's so many moments in Resident Evil 2. I want to know which moment is the most memorable to you guys. So let me know in the comments below, of course. Anyways, thanks for tuning in on this episode of Nerd Space. Just so you know, I will be doing a video similar to this every single week, every single Monday, where I do the best moments from a specific Resident Evil title. And next week is going to be Resident Evil 3, Nemesis and the remake. So make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe so that way you guys are ready for when I post that video. Hit the bell icon if you want to get notified whenever I post new videos. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. And of course, as always, I will see you on the next episode of Nerd Space. Take care.